It's back to school time. Hi folks, Robert Lowell Goller here. Thank you for joining me for our weekly chats about local history. As our local East Aurora students head back to the middle school here on Main Street, they will be continuing a very historic journey of public education here in East Aurora, public and private education. On this site, and it was kind of a surprise to me as I was looking at the numbers, because we look at history sometimes and we forget how long things might have been happening and how historic some things might be all just around us in everyday life. This site here at Main and North Grove Street has been the site of a school for nearly 200 years, and that is quite rare. It's quite interesting, the history of this property. It started out as a private school and then it became the public school. But students attending the middle school here are attending school in the very same spot that students have been going to school for nearly 2 centuries. It all started back in 1832, 1833, when the Aurora Manual Labor Seminary began, and it was a private school, and local business people, local civic leaders got together. The land was deeded and they wanted a private high school for local students. Well, it wasn't just East Aurora. People came in from all over the place, boarded here in East Aurora. This was before the railroad. So you come to East Aurora for school, you would stay with a local family for the semester, and you would take classes like foreign languages, mathematics, and it was classical languages. It was a private high school, because before the late 1800s, the idea of a public high school education was kind of a foreign concept. You would go through 8th grade, you would go through the one-room schoolhouses known as common schools, but after that, you wouldn't go to high school necessarily unless you could afford to go to a private school, including the Aurora Manual Labor Seminary. Now, a few years after the opening of the school on this lot, and it was a frame structure, 2 stories, very small house that they held this school in. They changed the name to Aurora Academy, and you might have heard of that name if you're from East Aurora. And that was the continuation of the private school. And again, you could take, you would pay per class, and it was not a public school. And that continued on with varying levels of success through the early 1880s. Now, in 1883, we had some one-room schoolhouses here in the village, and there was a movement in the late 1800s to provide public, free high school education. And so the residents of the village voted to combine the one-room schoolhouses and form East Aurora Union Free School District Number 1. Now, I explain what Union Free means. It's often confused. In my book, Who Put the East in East Aurora and Other Chronicles of Our Past, this would be another chronicle of our past. And I have a whole chapter on the history of our schools, why we have the Blue Devil, why the school colors are blue and white. So I invite you to check it out. Check out the book, Who Put the East in East Aurora. And one of the things I talk about is the formation of the Union Free School District and why we are union free and why it has nothing to do with employee unions and teacher unions. We have those. It's not free of those. But in 1883, the schools combined through a vote of the village. There was one at the west end, there was one at the east end of our village. And they, the next year, in 1884, the Aurora Academy School Board, the private school board, resigned, and they turned this property over to the public school district. And this would serve local students. It wouldn't be drawing in students from other places. And actually, one of the reasons the private academy the success was waning of the private academies because public high schools were forming, and so there was no need anymore for these private high schools, bringing in people from all over the region. And so this high school would serve the East Aurora Union School District, which at that point was just the village, and as I explained in the book, expanded out over several years. So they took over this property at Main and North Grove Street. They took over the Academy building, and they actually built a replacement building here on the corner in front of the old Academy building. So it blocked that an old Academy building, which was much smaller than the building that was here. Then in 1917, this building behind me was built, and as more students started coming to school here, and this school had all the grades, kindergarten through high school at that point. And then eventually the 1920s, they put the middle section on, which is behind me over here. And then in the 1930s, they put the West Wing on as more students came to the school, and as these one-room schoolhouses were joining the Union Free School District. And so it was the Union School for several years, K through 12. Then it became just a high school once the elementary schools started opening up. Your Southside, your Parkdale neighborhood elementary schools, West Falls School opened up. Then in 1970, East Aurora built a new high school up on Center Street, and then this building became a middle school because the high school had moved up there. So this was the high school until 1970. Many of you already know this. Many of you who went to school here, graduated high school here. But in early 1970s, the high school up on Center Street opened. This became a middle school. For several years, of course, it became Main Street Elementary, grade 3 through 8, and now it's back to being a middle school. But one of the cool things, no matter what grades were in the building, no matter what you called it, the Main Street School, the middle school, the high school before that, there has been education happening at this corner for nearly 2 centuries. From the very early days of our school, of our community, we had one-room schoolhouses, but then there was a need sought for advanced education, and so they opened what was then a private high school that you would pay for. People from Buffalo came, people from Rochester area came to East Aurora to go to that private academy, but it did serve mostly, if you look at the class lists, it did serve mostly local students. And that was until the 1880s when we formed a public high school, public school district, and we were able to take over the old academy building and have a public high school here on the corner of Main and North Grove Street. And so as students go to school here this year, they will be continuing a nearly 200-year tradition on Main Street here in East Aurora, which is kind of rare. Most communities have moved their schools around, and we really haven't. Since 1832, we have had a school at this corner. Again, thank you for joining me for our weekly chats about local history. I am Robert Lowell Goller. I am the Town and Village historian, but these videos and a lot of my research, including my books, are not affiliated with my job as Town and Village historian. If you want to know more about the books or more about the history of East Aurora's schools, I wrote a lot about it in this book, Who Put the East in East Aurora. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram, or you can go to my website, robertlowellgoller.com, for all the information you need about getting the book. I really appreciate you to support the book project. Thank you so much. And of course, the book's available at local bookstores as well. Again, thank you for keeping history alive, and we'll see you next time.